Welcome to my 2024 NFL team tier list. These are the teams that I think are most likely to win the Super Bowl in order. I gave bonus points to teams that I really think have a great shot this year, of course, and subtracted points from teams who have consistently made it to the playoffs but seem to always choke. I'm speaking to the Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, let's just get it started right now with the worst team in football as it is. It's the New England Patriots. They have a new coaching staff. Drake May's probably not going to start immediately. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett. They got him some okay weapons in this draft. Defense still, it's all right. Nothing crazy. The talent here is pretty lacking. I think this is, we're about 2 years away from when Drake May really takes over and has a great offense and defense surrounding him. Right now, it's not that point. Doesn't have a ton of talent, and I don't think they throw him into the fire too soon. Maybe like 4 to 6 weeks into the season, and then he gets to figure things out. But don't put a lot of pressure on him right now. It's a long shot. Then another rookie, the number 31 team. It's the Denver Broncos, still in F tier. Bo Nix's going to come in, probably going to win the starting job. He's in a three-way competition right now. His main person he's going against is Zach Wilson, but I mean, they're the same age, so I guess it's not that crazy to think that Zach Wilson can win that job. But whoever it is, team's not overall that talented. The defense is pretty good, but the offense, it's honestly horrible. I just don't see much going on here. Keeping him at F tier. Sean Payton, I mean, he used to be a great coach. I'm not quite sure what's going on right now. Maybe he returns to form, but yeah, I'm not in on them this year. Then number 30, the Washington Commanders. Pretty good draft, pretty good skill positions around. Jaden Daniels, I like Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson's fine, but besides that, there's really not too much going on with this team. I mean, the defense was the worst in the NFL from a pass standpoint last year, allowing the most yards per game, very consistently getting burned by every quarterback in the league. So I just, bad team. We don't have to talk too much about them. Then finally, rounding out F tier, but I do think I may even move them up to E tier pretty soon, is the Carolina Panthers. They now have Dave Canales at head coach, who is pretty much responsible for Geno Smith 2 years ago having a big leap, and then Baker Mayfield having a big leap last year. I think he does the same thing with Bryce Young. Basically, Adam Thielen's a good, slot receiver. Deontay's a good addition. Xavier Legette could be fine, could be a complete nothing. We're not sure yet, but at least there's something to build around. There's a better offensive line this year. They got Jonathan Brooks, pretty high draft capital in the draft. If his ACL is fine, they could be pretty good this year, and they do have talent on their defense. So that means second in E tier going to be the Raiders. Now, the Raiders have some, talent. I think obviously Devontae is a top 3 wide receiver. I think Brock Bowers is going to be something special. Great tight end talent. They're just missing the quarterback. We know that O-line's not great, but I think that Gardner Minshew can get things done. I think he'll pass the ball enough to where Devontae and Bowers still have good seasons like he did in the Colts situation with Michael Pittman, just completely force-feeding him almost 10 targets a game. Something similar there. Nothing special on defense as usual. Obviously, Max Crosby's that guy, but besides that, pretty average, okay? Then we got the Titans. I am actually pretty excited for this wide receiver trio of Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins, and now Calvin Ridley. Will Levis has new coaches around him that are going to actually let him throw the ball this time around, and he doesn't have Derrick Henry to completely mop up everything, within 20 yards of the goal line. So I think he could have a real season here. I think he has the talent, the arm talent, and DeAndre Hopkins was sneakily a top 5 wide receiver last year in terms of open score, which is basically ESPN stat for route running. So I don't think he's washed at all. I think Calvin really got a pretty unfortunate circumstance on the Jaguars. He got 1,000 yards, but he had like 8 or 7 touchdowns, but he had a lot of red zone targets that were either just 1 foot out of bounds or PI. He had actually the most PI yards in the league. It was something like 258. So poor guy couldn't get it real going in Jacksonville, but I think he could do something here in Tennessee, especially with the coaching change. Then we get to the 4th in E tier. That is the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, I think, is a great coach, but he just has absolutely no talent to work with these days. He got it done the first year he was there because, he's able to scheme some stuff up, use Danny Dimes pretty well, but we knew that wasn't going to last forever because you need talent. Ultimately, you need talent. These defenses will figure it out. Malik Neighbors, great addition in the draft, but I am happy they didn't take a quarterback just because I feel bad for quarterbacks that get thrown into these situations like Zach Wilson his rookie year, and Sam Darnold, and kind of Baker Mayfield because OBJ was hurt a lot of the time, where they just get into these situations where there's just no one around them to work with. And if they did that again this year, they get J.J. McCarthy or something like that, they would have nothing to help them with. So I'm happy they're just riding it out one more year with Danny Dimes, and then hopefully next year, when they don't do so well this year, I'm thinking like 6-ish wins, 6 to 7 wins, then they'll move on. Overall, talent on the defensive ends, okay, not bad. Got rid of one of the best safeties in the league. I'm just middling on them. Then the Saints we got in the last E tier spot. Very average again. Derek Carr, not a great quarterback at this point in his career. Alvin Kamara is looking pretty washed. We may see Kendry Miller take a little bit more over this year. The offensive line has become, it used to be top 5, now it's probably bottom 5. Injuries galore, just not the talent that it used to be. Michael Thomas obviously gone, so it's pretty much just Chris Olave doing everything. Rashid Shaheed is pretty nice, but I don't think that this offense is going to really do too much. Defense pretty solid, but they're not going to be able to carry this team. It's kind of like the Jets from the past couple of years where the offense is just non-existent. Then we get to the D tier, starting with the Vikings, last in D tier. Right now, not sure if J.J. McCarthy is going to be starting. Looks like they'll probably have a quarterback switch throughout the year. If not, maybe he starts week 1. But looking at this point, very, very early, but at this point, he's like second or third in the depth chart. I'm sure he'll climb that pretty quickly. Offensive talent is amazing. Problem is T.J. Hawkinson's hurt, but Addison and Jefferson should be in store, especially Jefferson, for another big year. Love Aaron Jones, the addition with Ty Chandler. It's a great 1-2 punch. Ty Chandler's better than A.J. Dillon was in Green Bay, so this is a better 1-2 punch than Green Bay had. Offensive line, the tackles are great. The interior is pretty mess still. Defense, while they kind of lack in talent, did pretty well blitzing last year. They just completely they rushed at the highest rate in the NFL blitz-wise. It was actually insane what they were doing last year, and it was kind of working. So we'll see if offenses figure that out a little bit more, but the defensive scheme is great. So I think what they lack in talent, they make up for in scheme, and I think they'll be okay again. Then I got the Bears one spot ahead of them. I just think they have a little bit more certainty just with the quarterback. Quarterbacks mean so much these days, and Caleb Williams walking into Odunze, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. I mean, you can't ask for a better wide receiver trio to just walk into the NFL with. So basically, Keenan Allen was the number 1 route runner in the NFL last year, according to OpenScore. He was the most open in the league. Was absolutely amazing before he got hurt. I think that's a great addition for them. Odunze, obviously a great route runner by Reception Perception, which is a great tool by Matt Harmon. Looked amazing in college. And then DJ Moore, we already know, is great run after catch, pretty good route runner, just very complementary skill set. I think Odunze could be the X, DJ Moore could be the Z, and Keenan Allen would be the slot by the end of the year probably. Not saying Odunze is going to get the most targets or anything. I just think that's how the roles will play out. And if you're not the X receiver, it's not the end all be all, guys. Like, that's just, it's not how targets work these days. Receivers just do whatever they want. I don't think DeAndre Swift is a great addition, to be honest. I don't. To me, that screams they want to pass a lot because he's not a good rusher in between the tackles. He's explosive, but in between tackle stuff, reading the blocks, he's not very good at. I think Khalil Herbert's the better pure rusher, so I wouldn't be too shocked if he either gets traded or he gets to, get the starting job at some point, or at least a crack at it. Defense is actually not bad at all. They were a great rushing defense last year. So if they can keep that type of pedigree this year, I think they'll be a team that could, push for 9 to 10 wins pretty easily. Then we got the Bucs, kind of benefit of the doubt from last year. I think they may regress a little bit just because the teams in their division, mainly the Falcons, got a little bit better, a lot better actually. So I'm pretty much the same on the Bucs, how they were last year, just a little bit worse coaching. I could see them finishing with about 8 to 9 wins. Love Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's supposed to play in the slot more this year, which is great. They had him on the outside. He's never really done that in his career, so it's good that he's going back to his home there in the slot. Pretty, solid defense in terms of pass rush and secondary, but just kind of a middling team. I'm not going to get too excited for Baker Mayfield. I think the loss of Dave Canales is going to hurt them. I'm not a big fan of the running backs. Rachaad White, not very efficient. The O-line is not very good in run blocking, so it's not even completely on Rachaad White, but they're not going to be able to run the ball. It's going to be, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans doing their thing again. And next in Tier D, we still got the Atlanta Falcons. I think they're just a smidgen better than the Bucs. I think Kirk Cousins is a big upgrade. We'll see how he is off the injury. We'll also see how Kyle Pitts is off that injury with his knee last year. He never really could turn on that knee, never fully recovered. If you guys remember, he hurt I believe it was either his MCL or meniscus, one of the two, but he hurt it the year before. People didn't think it was too serious, but it turned out to be pretty serious because we saw in training camp he didn't look right, and then it carried into the season. He did not play well. Drake London could see a big boost here. The main thing is Arthur Smith is gone, which could, Raheem Morris is here, which hopefully brings in some, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay type of thought process into this offense, which could really help. Drake London should be in for a big year, but mainly Bijan Robinson is going to get the full workload instead of having to split so much of that with Tyler Algier. O-line is great, absolutely phenomenal O-line. Defense is middle of the road. Still got them in D tier, but I could see them getting sneakily 10 wins because the division is so easy. Next up is the Cardinals. I really like them. I like Kyler Murray being fully healthy this year. I think he's kind of had an unfair chance in the league so far. I do think he is still probably a top 10 quarterback, especially talent-wise. He just either gets hurt or just has nothing around him. But I think Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride and James Conner, and even Trey Benson, if he comes on strong, is a pretty good core to have around you. I really like it. Nice and young, besides Conner, obviously. Nice and young. O-line's getting a little bit better. Defense is still solid, I guess. They're okay. But yeah, I kind of see them as one of those teams that offensively could have some real fireworks. I could see them getting in a lot of shootouts, but I'm going to keep them in D tier. I think they have like 8 to 9 win upside. Then we got the Colts to round out the D tier. They kind of overplayed what they should have last year with Gardner Minshew, but 9 wins last year. Now they get Anthony Richardson, who should be a quarterback upgrade. That could lead them to 9-10 wins again. I think that Jonathan Taylor being fully healthy and having that RPO, option with the quarterback and running back there is going to be great, especially around the goal line. Just we see how that works for Baltimore. It's very difficult for defenses to work around that. They got Josh Downs to man the slot, Michael Pittman to do a lot of the short to intermediate work as well, and then Adonai Mitchell is perfect pairing for Anthony Richardson's type of arm talent. Deep bombs down the field. It's going to be a match made in heaven, probably. He didn't have great metrics in college. AD Mitchell did. All these receivers complement each other perfectly, basically. Then we get to C tier, where I have the Seahawks to start us off. They've had great coaching change to Shane Waldron instead of having old Pete Carroll, who just wanted to run the ball all day. So I think DK, Lockett, and JSN get big bumps, but Geno Smith did seem to take a step back last year. Now they bring in Sam Howell, who should maybe take over towards the end of the year if this team isn't performing as well as they should be, but hopefully Geno Smith can return to that form we did see in 2022. He did look like a top 7 quarterback for most of that year. So maybe he bounces back now that he's allowed to throw the ball more. Good 1-2 punch in the running back room. Very solid defense. So I think this team actually has potential to make a weird push in that division. Obviously, the 49ers are the best team by far, but I think the Seahawks can't really be counted out too much. Now, the Jaguars are next up in the C tier. They're very like Dallas Cowboy-ish in the way that I think they can maybe make the playoffs. I think they're a worse version for sure, where it's like teetering on making the playoffs, but I never see true Super Bowl upside at this current stage. Bring in a good receiver in Brian Thomas in the draft. That should be fine. Gabe Davis really is just such a downgrade from Calvin Ridley, so I'm not happy about that for them. Trevor Lawrence has been kind of a disappointment to me over the past few years. I did expect more from him. I expected at this point for him to really launch, at least be in the top 10 quarterbacks, but right now it's, I was hoping he'd launch into the top 5 by this point. Neither of those are looking great. They just kind of perennially fall short, and this division is getting tougher, man. The Colts are very hard to play. Obviously, we have the Houston Texans, who just came on super strong last year and underrated, and I just can see them finishing with like 8 to 9 wins again. Next up, the Steelers. We know they're always going to finish with 9 to 10 wins. It's just what they do. Russell Wilson is a pretty big quarterback upgrade, but they lose Deontay Johnson. So once again, what is this offense really doing? I just don't love the passing game that they have now that it's just George Pickens. Maybe they feed him a ton of targets, but he's not a good enough route runner, in my opinion, to really just crush a defense in nuanced ways. I think he's just very strictly downfield. So I'm not sure what they're going to do in the intermediate stuff. They did draft a receiver, so we'll see how that goes. But the defense, of course, when they want to be, they're lights out. Sometimes they're a little hit and miss, but like TJ Watt, in my opinion, by far the best defender in the league, especially since Aaron Donald did retire. I like the running backs. I think Arthur Smith, now that he's not going to be a head coach, I think he'll actually coach a little better. The reins will be, reined in a little bit. And I think he can actually come up with some pretty good run games like he did in Tennessee. I think he's a great 1-2 punch with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. I've always said that Najee's not like a true RB1. He should never be having the full workload just because he can handle it. He's not that talented. Jalen Warren offers a little bit more burst and pass catching upside, so I do like that duo. Then we got the Rams. You guys know I love these receivers and I love Stafford. I think that they can have a great 1-2 punch with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua with Stafford if they're all healthy. We know Cooper was dealing with tons of injuries, like 3 of them last year. So if they're fully healthy, this offense could really upgrade in strides. Blake Corum offers Kyron Williams some rest. We've already had good reports from Blake Corum out of camp. Some mental mistakes, but Coach Sean McVay said, he has an uncanny ability to recover from those and get going again. So like to see that. They want to give Kyron not as much work, quite as much work this year, maybe like a 70-30 split. So I like that. Defense obviously takes a massive hit with no Aaron Donald. We'll have to see how that impacts them. We haven't seen for the last decade how they'll look without that. So I'm a little worried there, but I think the offense will really keep them in a lot of shootouts this year, finishing again round 9 wins. Then the final 2 teams in C tier. We'll get to the first one. It is the Chargers. I think that the run game is going to be very solid here. If it's Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, it should be pretty solid. Greg Roman knows how to scheme up a good run game. Harbaugh from Michigan is coming in now, so we're going to have a ultra strong run game. It's just going to be all about the run game, but I think that this is going to kind of be a little bit like the Chiefs in the past couple of years, where they don't have many great receivers, but they're going to be very efficient on play action, know how to use those receivers. Ladd McConkey really fills in for that Keenan Allen role, except he runs a 4.39, much faster, but I could see him getting peppered with targets like 8 to 9 a game at some points in the season. On the outside, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, that is very weak. That's a serious problem. Another problem I have is that on a lot of these run plays, they're going to probably use a lot of 2 tight end sets, which means that Ladd McConkey is probably not going to be in the top 2 receivers in terms of blocking, so he may be off the field for a bunch of these. So hopefully DJ Chark can overtake Quentin Johnston, because I think he's an absolute bum. I think Josh Palmer's fine, but there's going to be, the receiving core is obviously terrible, but if Herbert can channel his inner Mahomes and just be very efficient, make the right reads, it should be pretty easy since the run game will be such a big factor here. But once again, I don't like their defense, so that's kind of where I have them here. I think they're a very tough team to play. That'll be a little savvy, but I just don't see them making it any higher than this. They're probably one of the lower ceiling teams in this tier. And then C tier, the final team is going to be the Browns. Had a great run at the end of it last year. Very surprisingly good, but now the Bengals are better this year. We know the Ravens are good, and obviously the Steelers are good, so very, very tough division. I think Deshaun Watson has really struggled in the NFL so far these past 2 to 3 years. Hopefully, things revert back to his Houston days, and he looks good again. They got Jerry Jeudy, still have Amari Cooper, David Njoku. David Njoku is not the same at the beginning and the end of the season. He was much better with Joe Flacco. They used him for more type of dump-off scheme stuff. We'll see if they do it again here with Deshaun Watson, but I don't trust him yet. Defense, amazing. Second best or best in the league last year. Nick Chubb, I can't wait until he comes back, because when he's back, this team should be firing on all cylinders. You could move them up to B tier. I can be talked into that if Nick Chubb is off the pup or maybe ready by week 6, fine. But if he's going to be hurt all year, that worries me a little bit. I do think for running backs, they kind of don't matter these days besides CMC and the top guys, but I think Nick Chubb is one of those guys that can actually drag this team to stardom. Now, entering B tier, Dallas Cowboys. Talent-wise, they could be A tier. I would say they don't have enough receiving power around CeeDee Lamb, but they'll find a way to just be super efficient on the offense, pass a ton. Zeke is back. I think he'll do his thing. He'll pass block very well. He'll be kind of, a plotter in the backfield. He can catch dump offs if he needed to. Running backs kind of suck. Receiver depth behind CeeDee Lamb kind of sucks. I think Brandon Cooks is fine, but after that, it is terrible. Jake Ferguson could be in a 10-plus touchdown year here. Defense, obviously amazing. Micah Parsons, love him. They should get Trayvon Diggs back this year, I guess. I'm not sure what. I haven't kept up to date with when he should be back, but he tore his ACL pretty early, so he should be back fairly soon. I just don't think they have the true upside. We see it year in, year out. They just got clobbered by the Packers in the playoffs. So what do they do when it comes to playoff time? That's why they're in B tier. I just don't know how they have upside for a Super Bowl at this point. Now, next up, the Miami Dolphins in B tier. I think Mike McDaniel is one of the best coaches in the league, especially at scheming up offenses and really helping out Tua, because we know Tua is pretty limited, especially in cold weather. Obviously, Jalen Waddle, very, very hurt last year, super, super hurt. Left a lot of games, so he was actually surprisingly more efficient last year than he was the year before. So I think him and Tyreek are going to have just an absolutely insane season if they can keep Tua on the right track and not have so many minute games, especially towards the end of the year when it gets really cold out. If they can fix those, they do truly have some AFC Championship aspirations. Defense was super banged up at the end of last year, lost a lot of important pieces, so those guys should be back, and this team should be a little bit better. Then we have the Eagles to be the second to last B tier team. The Eagles have basically the same talent level as the 49ers, just the coaching staff last year got so bad. The play calling was so bad. At the end of the year, that offense was just bottom 5 basically when you watch them. I mean, I really thought they were going to pull it together for the Bucs game in the playoffs. I thought we were watching, a mirage at the end of the regular season, and then they fix it all. They did not do that. They have a whole offseason to do that. If they can do that, they'll move up to A tier, maybe even get to S tier one day. We'll see. They're that talented, but that coaching was so bad, and Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, did take a step back as a passer. Saquon's a great addition behind that great O-line. They do lose Jason Kelce, which will hurt, but I think Cam Jurgens fills in pretty well. He should be taking over. The tush push should still be a thing. That defense does need to pick it up, though, because they did draft a bunch of DBs, so they probably should, but last year they were the second worst team in terms of passing yards per game, so they were not great. Finally, rounding out B tier, the Bills. They're actually favored to win their division, but I do not have them as the top team in their division, just because, once again, I don't think at this point, especially giving away Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, even though I don't love Gabe Davis, I just think they're so limited on offense now that I don't think they have any Super Bowl upside. It's turning into a Lamar Jackson Ravens thing where it's Josh Allen's got to be really efficient now, and he's got to run a ton near the goal line. He's going to score 15 rushing touchdowns again this year. And just Keon Coleman, I don't love as a prospect. Maybe he does some good stuff. Curtis Samuel is going to be a Cole Beasley in the slot. I like that, but just this offense is very gross. I'm not a big fan of James Cook in the run game. In today's NFL, you need that true crazy passing upside in the Super Bowl era. We see it with the Chiefs every single year. I just don't think the Bills have it anymore without those receivers. Unless Keon Coleman is way better than they think he is. Maybe he is, and maybe Khalil Shakir takes that third-year bump, but I don't think Khalil Shakir is very talented at all, so I just don't see it here. Next up in A tier, the first team in A tier, the Ravens. And I keep saying this every single year. I need to see Lamar Jackson make some comeback wins. We can see them steamroll every single team in the regular season. I don't care. If they're playing from the lead every single game and then they get to the playoffs and they're down by 1 touchdown to the Chiefs, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, what do we do? We can't run the ball anymore. We have to throw the ball. And then we realize, oh my God, we can't throw the ball when we're playing from behind because it's not easy. Guys, it is so easy to front run and throw the football, and a defense expects you to just run the clock out. I can't explain to you like how sad it is that Lamar really does not have very many comeback wins that we can remember right now. I just don't see how when he gets in, when push comes to shove and he gets in a shootout with Mahomes again, or CJ Stroud this year, now that they have Diggs, that offense is stepping up, or the Bengals who are now healthy again this year, like what are they going to do when they're behind, guys? They can't lead every single playoff game, right? So yeah, I'm just lowering them because I haven't seen it from Lamar yet. Andrews was hurt. Maybe that fixes everything, and maybe Zay Flowers takes a year 2 bump. Defense is great. That could all happen, but it's pretty much got to be like a Celtics playoff run where it's just very easy, injured, banged up teams that they keep running through. The Bengals, I got a tier in the same tier, but a spot above them. A little bit worried about Joe Burrow's wrist. I don't think it'll ever be the same again. That's what I'm hearing, at least. No quarterback's ever had this or had to come back from it, but AJ Hawk and the Pat McAfee show talked about how he had the same operation on his wrist. Still sore, still hurts every single day, not as flexible, not as strong. So I am worried about that. For a quarterback, that's quite important. Touch is everything, and if that touch is gone, even like 10 to 15%, that could be huge. So I'm a little worried about that. They did bring back T. Higgins, and I would assume that T. Higgins would have to be like, okay, Joe, like, is Joe really, is he good again? If I want to sign here, like, I don't want to go on a franchise tag if Joe's not good. But so I'm gonna put them in A tier as if Joe is gonna be healthy for this year. They just were very, very unlucky last year, but they still came out with a decent amount of wins, a respectable amount of wins for the circumstances they had. But I think they are more likely this year to finish with like 11 to 12 wins if Burrow is healthy. Then we get to the Houston Texans. They get Stephon Diggs. This passing trio is probably the best in the NFL. I mean, how else do you put it? Unless you include the 49ers like McCaffrey and Kittle. But, I mean, just strictly wide receivers. Tank Dell, in my opinion, has top 5 upside at the wide receiver position. He's that good as a route runner and as just a speedy guy downfield. His 40 time does not do him justice in his game speed. His route running is just absolutely superb, much better than like Nico Collins. He's much more on the Stephon Diggs side of things there. Diggs should come in, completely dominate the slot, at least for 1 year. They got him on a 1-year loan. And Nico Collins would do his thing downfield. I see it as Nico's the downfield guy. Dell's the intermediate range, some downfield stuff for sure, but a lot of that just out route type of crossing patterns and stuff where you can really show off that quick twitch side to side that he showed last year that really looked nice to me on tape. And then Stephon Diggs does his thing in the slot. I think that CJ Stroud obviously had such a good rookie year. It's hard to say, but maybe he has a year 2 bump. A lot of these quarterbacks just get so much better at reading defenses in year 2. He could have just an insane year, and that defense is very, very solid. So this team really does have some great Super Bowl aspirations. It's just they're very young. That's the problem. They're very, very young. That's the only knock I have on them. Then we got the Detroit Lions, made it so far last year, but they're kind of similar-ish to the Ravens, where they do really rely on front running and being in the lead and dominating with Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery and that great offensive line. It's tough to put a lot of pressure on Jared Goff and make him throw from behind. They're very like the 49ers. It's like the 49ers and them are very similar, but I think the 49ers have that true A1 type of passing attack when they need it, whereas Amon-Ra Laporta is just so close to the line of scrimmage. The way that this really works out this year, they do have a good defense, but the way this really works out is if Jameson Williams actually breaks out as a deep threat and really opens up the offense, catches, 130-plus yard pass a game, 1 or 2, that's all you need to really just completely make defenses play a totally different brand of defense against you. If he can do that, this team really does have Super Bowl aspirations, but Dan Campbell says he's on track to do that. He's looking great in minicamp and everything, but I need to see it to believe it because that dude has sucked so far. Granted, had the issues with the off the field stuff and the ACL, of course, but we'll see how he is. Now, the New York Jets. Now, the New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers, I think, have that maturity and mentality of actually wanting to win a Super Bowl. Defense, it's 1 or 2. 1 or 2. Pick them or the Browns, 1 or 2 in the league. The pass defense, absolutely insane. Rush defense, fine. But that attack, man, Garrett Wilson's finally going to break out. Garrett's going to break out. Brees is a year removed from the ACL. He started to really come on towards the end of the year. Now is a year removed from it. I think that Brees has all the talent in the world. He's probably the most talented running back in the league outside of CMC right now. He's my number 2 running back. He's very, very close with him and Bijan, but I do prefer Brees. Before he had that ACL, he was averaging like 6 yards a carry. Dude is electric, and I think he'll really show that again this year. O-line is a little bit improved. Nothing crazy, but a little bit improved. Mike Williams is a good addition, better than what they had at wide receiver 2 last year. Got to see how he does off the ACL, but I do have very high hopes for the Jets. Then we got the Packers. I mean, let's be real, guys. If Jordan Love didn't have an all-time meltdown, not even the last throw, but the first pick, they had 2 picks in that 49ers game, they had that game wrapped up in a bow. He became very inaccurate outside of the 2 picks. A lot of his throws just became very inaccurate. He got a little jumpy. Maybe he was too excited or got scared to blow the lead. And the final throw of the game to throw away the game on that pick was just so rookie mistake of him. It was his first year starting, but my God, did he look like Aaron Rodgers and a top 5 talent. The throws off his back foot, the just confidence of his arm most of the time, especially against like Dallas in that playoff game, really reminded me of Rodgers, and that arm talent is something special. Defense, very talented. They kept around Jair Alexander, who's probably still a top 3 corner in the NFL, absolutely locked down when he wants to be. Rashawn Gary is such a beast in the D-line. The O-line, gave up a little bit of what they had, but I think they'll still be talented. I think the Eagles and the Packers have the best O-line coaches in the league when it comes to that type of stuff, like growth and development, so I think they're going to be completely fine there. They do lose Aaron Jones. That hurts a ton. I think he is much better at this current point of his career than Josh Jacobs is. I don't care that he's 3 years older. He is clearly better. He looked way better on film last year. The only difference is he's not as injury prone, but we'll see how that goes with Josh Jacobs, who didn't look too great last year. Now, the final 2 teams, the best 2 teams in the league, San Fran 49ers. On paper, most talented team in the league. If you gave like points to every position, like, running backs a 10 out of 10, wide receivers like a 9.5 out of 10, George Kittle's like a 10 out of 10. If you give points to every position group, they would easily have the most in the league. It's just so much talent on this team, but what matters most, as I said before, in those comeback scenarios, when you're down, game on the line, you need to have a top 5 quarterback. You really do, and Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. And now they got Kelsey back to full health. He was hurt last year. Rashee Rice, yeah, he's suspended, but Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy, I mean, man, what do you do? What do you do? They got through all the years of having no receivers. Now they got receivers. They got 3 of them, and then Kelsey. I mean, the defense got worse. That's the only thing you can really complain about. They lost Snead, but like this offense, Mahomes probably going to put up like 50 touchdowns, 5K yards, and I'm not going to be surprised. They're my number 1 team. But yeah, guys, let's get this video to like 50, 100 likes, and I'll put out some more tier lists for anything. I'll probably do a lot of fantasy football stuff, but I'll also do tier lists for like just overall wide receivers and overall running back, stuff like that, not fantasy related. So yeah, leave a like, drop a comment, let me know what you want to see next, leave a follow, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.